You guys go ahead, take your seats. You guys sent in the questions last night. I have the questions here on my phone. What I did is I synthesized your questions into several questions. We're gonna go as fast as we can to kind of get them. So if you hear a question that's kind of like your question, know that multiple questions in that category got asked, and I amalgamated them with my wordsmithing skills of glory. All right. Let's just start with this one, and I'm gonna go right to the Luskos with this. So the most frequently asked question in the room last night and this morning was some version of how do we restore the love we once had to our marriage? We've lost the love, how do we restore it?
Thank you. That's such a good question. That was one thing that we were wanting to talk about at the end, but I think the whole idea of every drop counts, of every little thing matters. So if you haven't been in the habit of paying attention to your spouse and the little things that they do that are good and that you want to see more of, it's never too late to start paying attention to those things now and saying those things now. And I think that so often, if we haven't been in the habit, it seems so overwhelming because it's like, what? I haven't done what I'm supposed to be doing. I haven't been encouraging and speaking life like I should. But every drop counts. So every little thing that you notice, taking those little moments where you say, hey, that was so amazing. I think that made me feel so loved and so encouraged. Thank you. Those little tiny things are gonna add up and be, as you look back, some of the things that really made a huge difference. And so it's never too late to start those little things. And it might seem insignificant, like we were saying last night, but all those little things make a big difference.
Yeah, I think that quote is, trust is built in drops and lost in buckets. And that's an organizational statement, but I think it's relationally sound as well. But I think if you've had a leak in a ceiling, which we've had, you can fill a bucket up with drops, so it's not the 80-yard long bomb that we wish we could be as the quarterbacks of our relationships. It is the blocking and tackling, fighting through 1 and 2 yards, and then a cloud of dust. And I think that is sound relational mentality.
It's basically doing what we're all going to be doing on Sunday morning with the NFL. Very good. I like that. Kevin, I'm going to come to you. One partner is being very difficult. We have a lot of these questions. So the difficulty ranges from they won't talk, they're not engaging, they're controlling, they're not spiritually interested. I got one partner. What's your advice to that couple? Oh, we got another mic out here. Tyler Canarashero. Sharon.
So anytime you have one partner, that to me is a red flag. Whenever we start talking about being difficult, that to me is a red flag that my guess is the couple by themselves is not going to be able to navigate them by themselves. And so I think whenever you get to that level, that is when we're going to want to get a professional involved. And so I think counseling would be a good thing. And one thing we have to do is we have to demystify the idea of counseling. So whenever I say that's a red flag, that does not mean you're getting divorced. That doesn't mean that. That means if you let that issue continue, your relationship is not going to be good. And so whenever I hear about one partner being very difficult, controlling, manipulating, my first question is, what is that partner afraid of? So they're hiding something, they're covering something, and it's being that fear is being expressed through controlling, manipulating, forceful behavior. So they're afraid of the conversation, so they yell. That way she doesn't ask the question anymore. They're afraid of dealing with the grief from childhood or what's going on right now. And so she just emotionally shuts down and always says, I'm fine, and will never actually engage. And so my recommendation would be get with a couple that you respect that maybe is 2 steps beyond you, get with a pastor, or get with a professional and seek counseling to help through that issue. And again, that is the stage. Every couple is going to have to do that at some point. We're all going to have counseling at some point, to have somebody else assist us with that. So don't be afraid of it, but then move forward. And here's one thing we can do. We have a care center here at Bayside. And so if you are at a place that you're facing an issue that you think, you know what, we've tried to handle this on our own and it hasn't worked. Now we need somebody to help us with that. If you will email counselor at Bayside Online, we'll pay for the first 3 sessions for everybody in the room. I don't know how we're going to do that.
I was going to say, Kevin, that's clearly in your budget, not mine.
He's only been working here 4 weeks, guys.
Do you hear the clapping on that? They were like, yay. I think. Yay, I thought I was going to have to do this. It's very, very good. Okay, I'm going to try to get through a lot of these questions, guys, so I'm going to move fast. And let's bring Lisa Thompson online here and go to the variety of different questions that were asked about sex. And so...
What? I had no idea we were talking about that. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let's bring it on.
One of
Let's
the questions,
talk about
and
it.
then the last goes, well, I'll have you do the follow-up here. So
okay.
One of the questions that came up frequently was kind of, or if I could amalgamate them all together, they were like, help us build a good sex life at different ages and stages of our marriage.
Right.
So you have the young kids stage there. You guys have got a little bit younger family.
Don't let the kids sleep in your bed is rule number one.
There you go.
Amen.
Listen, there should be stuff happening in your bed that would scar your children for life should they be a witness to it, okay? That's...
The stories I could tell. Now, Lisa, you just dropped your kids off at, you're empty, you and Rob are empty nesters now.
We are empty nesting. 2 weeks ago, our last child of 4. Yeah, celebrate that. It's weird, that's all I have to say. But I think sex is gonna look different in every season. And so in every new season of life, you have to, as a couple, redefine what that's going to look like and be okay with it looking differently than what it looked like in the last season. Especially the ages of your kids. Let's be honest, we had 4 teenagers, our rooms are smack dab together. It's not very freeing to be intimate in the bedroom when your kid's talking on their phone next door and you can hear every word. And so we really had to just be creative and talk through what that would look like in each season of our life. And of course, we're empty nesting now, and you think, well, now it can really begin. But you still have to talk about that and expectations and what that's going to look like. Here's the deal. My husband and I were talking about this yesterday. Sex is such a mystery. I mean, God gave us this gift that is amazing every time. Every time, the intimacy, the emotional bonds that it provides for you and your spouse, the goodness and the kindness that we learn about our God, that He would give us this gift that the world has never been able to manufacture on its own. You can't buy this. But God put this in the middle of our marriage, and we get this for our entire span of being a couple, and it's pretty amazing. So I'll let you know how empty nest sex go next panel, but...
Call back to the next marriage conference. That's very good. Very, very good. But you say, it just comes down to talking. You gotta go, what is our expectations? How has this changed? And that's very good. Let's go, give us the ages of your kids again. And then
15, oldest, 4 youngest. So we were young parents, now we're old parents also. We feel like grandparents to Lennox sometimes, just because there's a big gap. But yeah, that's the crew.
So answer that question for everyone that's got a 4-year-old to a teenager. How does that look for you guys?
Well, I think to wait till you're empty nester to build the sex life that you want to have is like thinking I'm going to tithe when I'm a millionaire. And romance works on any budget, So I just think you have to prioritize it now. I mean, I was joking about the kid in the center of the bed, but literally that's metaphorically and accurately of the kid being in the center of the relationship. And the kids are meant to go, the marriage is meant to stay. So I think you have to fight for the marriage to the concentric circles, me and Jesus, Levi and Jennie, us and the kids, and then on from there, and to not let anyone into the circle in front of them they shouldn't be in.
Yeah, and I think that there's the seasons where I know for me, after having babies, I mean, you just don't feel sexy. You feel like all the things, the hormones happening in your body and your brain, like it's a real thing. So postpartum is a real thing for women, and the things that we struggle through and our self-worth and our body image, like, because our body, right after you have a baby, is so weird when the baby comes out and like your belly's just like this just bowl full of jelly. And you just feel like you feel so bad, and that's real. And I think even in those seasons, knowing that being creative, like knowing that your husband still needs you, or even just saying like, I am so exhausted tonight, but let's do tomorrow or whatever. Like, I think just knowing that I think the key is communication and telling your spouse that you want them. You just feel so bad right now. I think that kind of thing makes all the difference in the world. When you have little kids and when you have babies, it is so true. It's like those knowing your season and knowing what does intimacy look like within that season.
I just want to add too, I would imagine in this room that abundant sex is maybe not happening for many of you, and that there's challenges and there's healing that God still wants to do in that area. But what I want you to hear is that God still wants to work in that area, to not give up. And kind of like what Kevin said, we've got this amazing care counseling office. I'd like to offer in addition to what you're offering.
I like this. The battle of the Thompson pastors.
But seriously, be in community. Live this out in community. Get into a group and be around other people who can be praying for this area in your marriage that God wants to bring. It's still yet to come. Don't give up.
What you find when you get into a small group is that everyone has these problems and experiences. Jennie, my thing is when my wife was postpartum, watching her with my children and watching her, I just fell so deeply in love with her. She was more beautiful to me than in any other time in our marriage. And at the same time, she was having all those feelings. So challenging, and yet there was an opportunity to bond in that. And this is where I'm going with this. I'm going to bring this over to you, Kevin. Date night problems. So we got several of these questions. Now, here's the problem with date nights. All Christians go on a date night. You're not born again if you're not going on date nights. Read your Bible and go on a date night. Those are the two things Jesus taught, right? And the problem with the date night is she thinks, oh, good, finally, undivided attention to talk about the problems of our children and our finances and in our marriage. And he thinks, finally, undivided attention for sexy time. We're gonna get some Applebee's and it's all like croutons. And so the expectation is so different. Kevin, help us. How do you have an actual spouse date night that works?
You have to have both those date nights separately.
Come on.
That's the key. I think you have to have an expectation going in. What is this night going to be about? And if you are not having times in which you are having undivided conversation, that's a problem. If you are not having times in which you're having great sex, that's a problem. I'll never forget years ago, I'm at a restaurant at lunch, a group of ladies was beside me. They're talking about a vacation that's coming up that one of the women is taking, and one of the wives say, I'm kind of dreading it because I know he just thinks it's going to be 24 hours worth of sex. And their conversation was fascinating, and I'm over here thinking to myself, that's exactly what he's thinking, by the way. But then I thought, well, what's wrong with that? On occasion, what's wrong with that? Can I get an amen?
What's wrong with that is that sounds exhausting. 24 hours of sex? I don't know, man. 24 minutes, maybe.
Bayside, where the truth will be spoken.
Hey, I think that's brilliant, though. Our counselor told us, don't have the check-in at the date night. And so that changed our game for us. So we table any conversation that's unpleasant or we'd say we'll put a pin in that. And because we used to every date night get into a big fight because we would talk about the budget and we would talk about this and then one of us would
the question was, so how are we doing? And then it would bring up.
Never ask a question you don't want to know the answer to. So we just don't have that on our date night. Date nights are joy and fun like Sabbath, and just let that be a time of delight. And then we have the conversational check-in at different times.
But you have to come back to it. I think that's the big thing. There's specifically men in this room, the temptation for us is to say, hey, this is fun date night, we'll come back to that. And then we do everything in our power to avoid coming back to that. If you do not come back to that, she's not gonna come back to the bed emotionally. And so you have to honor her by honestly being the one. So here's the thing. If you're the one that tables it, you're the one that brings it back up.
That's
Just
good.
own that.
Rob and I would have a Saturday morning business, like a Thompson business family meeting. And that's where we talked about finances, the kids' schedule, everything coming up that week. Talking about finances on your date night, that is a wet blanket. Nothing's happening that night. So separating those two was really helpful.
Yeah, wet blanket, that doesn't work.
It doesn't sound great at all.
All right, let's switch to kids, an easy topic. Okay, there were several versions of this question. We have different views of how to discipline our kids. What do you do when you have different philosophies, different views of how to discipline your kids? And I'll go to the Luskos first.
What would you say? I would say you're probably right. But
That's a guy who's gonna have a good date night right there.
I would say that's something to work out with your counselor. Honestly, that's the beautiful thing about having I see a counselor every 2 weeks, a psychologist who's a leadership coach as well. We have a marriage counselor we go to. So I think whenever we're under leadership too. We have a board of directors, we have pastors we answer to. So the beautiful thing is we're not doing life alone. So if I have different thoughts than Jennie and Jennie has different thoughts than me, that's when we go over our heads to the wise voices in our lives.
So good.
I feel like that doesn't happen very often though. I feel like for the most part, we're on the same wavelength.
Did you start on the same wavelength early in your marriage? Was that something that you...
Yeah, we usually fight about little stuff. The big stuff we tend to see eye to eye on, and I think that 95% of marriage is selection. You make a good choice, and I think it's also where you meet them. You meet them in the club. What do you think you're going to get, right? You meet them in God's house, there's a sense of this is what I'm prioritizing. So to go out into the world and try and drag someone then back into the church and have that worldview. So we saw eye to eye, like Isaac and Rebecca. Our head was in the clouds, focused on what God's wanted to do, and we met. And so coming together was a lot easier because we both wanted to raise our families in God's house, prioritizing the kingdom. So that does help.
And I think as things come up, it's that communication again of like, hey, I think we should do this with Olivia because now she's at a different age and it's always changing. So when your kids are getting older, it's like the boundaries are different. When your kids are 4 and your son is grabbing a knife out of the drawer and chasing his sisters around with it, it's like, okay, this discipline is different than our 15-year-old. So it is always changing and us being on the same page and talking about, okay, how do we deal with this situation? So I think that communication, again, is huge.
Yeah, it's so crucial. I know I'm the panel director, but here's one advice Kelly and I have given to couples on this. Switch roles. Usually there's one person who thinks we need to discipline the kids more than we are, and the other goes, we need to show them more grace and nurturing. And not just overall in the family, but with a specific kid. With my son, there was a period there I was like, I just bring too much intensity to our relationship. I need to be the good cop. I'm not gonna be the bad cop with him. And you're gonna need to step. And so in the master bedroom, I'd say, go tell him this, go tell him this. And then I walk out and go, hey buddy, how you doing? Let's go for a walk. You wanna help me make dinner? And we had to do that. And it was more about what was going on in me, what I was bringing to parenthood, than it was about what was going on in him. I just needed to get some stuff organized in me. And so I was like, you gotta be the one that helps him get his work done and helps him get this stuff done. And so we had that conversation and said, what's our strategy here? I'm gonna go against what I feel and I'm gonna play your role and you play my role. And then I started seeing it from her point of view and she started seeing it from my point of view.
Think about how confusing that is for kids. So if the parents,
my kids are very confused, by the way.
I'm sorry. So if the parents are disagreeing over what the consequences should be like that means the kids have no chance because they don't know what they're going to get on any given moment. I think one thing that can assist in this is you have a situation that's confusing, you disagree, okay, you work on it, and then you define the consequences to the actions and you let everybody know what that is so that the next time it happens, you're not debating it as parents, but more importantly, your kids already know. And you can say, if you would clarify the rules for your family, it would answer a lot of these questions.
And our rule was, if mom is upset, everyone has a consequence no matter what you did. Honestly, change. I quit being the judge and jury and lawyer. And I said, listen, if I walk into a room and your mother is upset, everyone has this consequence. And what happened is they didn't believe me, but I followed it through. And after about the 3rd time, you'd hear him in the room go, shh, stop saying that. He's gonna come in here. He's gonna come in here. I didn't do anything. It doesn't matter. You'll be in on it. And they started self-regulating because of that. Okay, Kevin, I'm gonna come to you. One of our children is more challenging to raise right now than others. So we all know all children in all different stages aren't the same, equal to be raised. Sometimes this happens because of a behavioral issue. You have a special needs daughter. How does speak to the family dynamic where one child is going through a very significant challenge, and how do parents handle that?
Yeah, I think you recognize that we all go through seasons in which we need special attention, and that takes place. And so then I think you as a couple begin to recognize, all right, this child does need our full attention at this moment, which means this other child is going to suffer, unfortunately. However, you recognize that they're being deprived of your attention, so you make sure that you come back to them. It might be a week from now, it might be another season from now. But one thing that we struggled with, I'll get into this a little bit in my breakout, is with our daughter with Down syndrome, we were giving so much attention to her and our son was so compliant, we did not recognize the damage that was being done to him. We didn't recognize the anxiety that was going on in him because she was getting so much of our attention until he expressed it in a way that was not good, by the way. Which now is teaching us, okay, it's an ebb and flow. This child gets our attention, then this child gets our attention. Dan Rather years ago was doing an interview with a mom who had like 10 kids, and he asked a question. He said, hey, which one do you love the most? Well, that's a silly question, right? But then the mom paused and said, whichever one is hurting the most. And so you think about that. You look at your children, there are going to be times in which they're going to need your full attention, and then you come back and recognize this too. The same is true with spouses. There are going to be times in which parenting is so demanding that I'm not going to get Jenny's attention. And that's okay. As long as she recognizes that, I recognize that, and we make sure that we come back to that later.
I'm going to go to the Luskos here with this one, and several versions of this question. How do we bounce back from a very difficult circumstance? Loss of a child, like you guys have experienced, very big economic problem. How do you get your breath? How do you get back up off the ground again?
Well, I mean, first of all, every situation is different. So anytime we talk about what we did, that what helped for us, I never want it to feel like it's prescriptive, but more descriptive. It helped for us to we took a month off of work and we just focused on healing. And during that season, we got out of town, we spent time with friends, we got professional help, pastoral help, and then I think it's ongoing. And I think you realize there's time delay stuff. Our kids are now dealing with a form of grief that we didn't expect, and that is the grief of, I have a sibling I don't remember. And I wasn't there to have the grief of that initial moment, but it's like a time delay thing. And so I think we're getting counseling now, even retroactively for them on some of that stuff, and just being patient with ourselves, knowing that grief, the only way through it is one step at a time. And so I think, there's nothing like the church on earth to suffer through. There's nothing like the church. I mean, everyone suffers, but to have this, to have family, to have friends, to have people to suffer with and to worship together with, we grieved our way through in church. I would look down and see Jenny's puddle of tears in front of her every Sunday, in front of her during worship. And, that's when we talk to couples, it's like, don't feel the need to protect God from how you feel. Give him exactly how you feel. Unload it on him. You don't need to protect him. He's there to protect you. So if you feel like cussing, cuss at him. Give him everything you have. He can handle it all, and then he's going to continue to be God and be there and work you through it. So,
and I think with kids too, empathy is so huge, because I think so often, at least in my mind, I think, why aren't you thinking the way I'm thinking? Like, I'm going through this, you're going through this, you should be on the same page as me, you should be, but they're 8 or they're 11, and putting yourself in their shoes of experiencing heartache and grief and pain, maybe not being able to vocalize and verbalize what that is. And so I think that has been something for me that I've learned so much of, putting myself in their shoes. And like you said, like that one-on-one time with them, I feel like helps so much when you notice, like, Daisy's acting up a little bit, which is not like her. So taking her aside and having a conversation and asking her questions, I think that goes such a long way. And I've noticed when I do that they respond so differently, and they almost like relax and open up, and they're like waiting for me to help them through and walk them through this. And so that empathy thing with our kids, I feel like is so huge.
Hey, Curt, yesterday Kelly showed me, she said engagement ring, wedding ring, suffer ring. I don't know how that's related to you, but.
No, it is, completely.
But
engagement ring, wedding ring, suffer
let's
ring.
talk one second to the single adults who are in the room. And so whether you're looking for marriage or maybe you're coming out of marriage, let me tell you the most overlooked characteristic of who you want to marry. Someone who suffers well.
That's so good.
Who do you want holding your hand when your mom dies? Who do you want in the room when the diagnosis comes? I don't care what they look like. I don't care how hot they are. I don't care how funny they are. If in that moment they can't have empathy and they can't deal with pain, you don't want their heart. Choose wisely who you're going to suffer with.
Put that on your eHarmony page and smoke it.
All right. Kevin, I want you to answer this question, and then I'm going to ask everyone on the panel to take one final shot at my last question. Just real quickly, Kevin.
You want us to take a shot?
Yes.
So
Take
too
a
early.
shot.
And that's not biblical.
The question, Kevin, is real quick, is how do we know as a couple when to go seek counseling?
Yeah, that's a great question. So how do you know you need counseling? Is there a major issue in your marriage that you have not been able to fix on your own? Is there an addiction that is taking place? Is there any form of physical, spiritual, or emotional abuse that is taking place? Is there something in your marriage that is off limits that you cannot talk about? Outside of physical difficulties in an unusual season of life, has it been an extended period of time since you've had any intimacy whatsoever? Is there a past grief or hurt that you never walked through? And here's a final one. Is your marriage where you want it? If the answer is no, get help. I mean, you've done a great job here. Read books, but if you're struggling through an issue on your own, then have somebody else assist you with that. And I guarantee you this, if you've never been to marriage counseling, you guys know this, 3 sessions in, you're gonna think to yourself, why did we wait this long? Why did we wait this long?
I would add to your list, is it a day that ends in Y? Go.
Very good. All right, let's go. Let's start with Lisa, go to Kevin, and then end with our honored guest, the last goes. What's one thing you did just to build some joy into your home? So the problem with this little season is it doesn't seem to want to end. We all need to, I always tell people, listen, you don't solve the problem and get joy. You get joy to solve the problem. So give us some help, Lisa. I've been in your home. It's a lot of fun in that home. What do you guys do to build joy?
Well, I think joy is a reminder that it's the presence of Christ. So what are you doing to bring the presence of Christ in your home to set the temperature of what you want your kids to experience? So, I mean, worship music and what you're watching on TV and what you're spending your time engaging in is going to make a huge difference in your home. There's so many negative influences right now in our world, and culture is pursuing our kids. Our home has to be a refuge. Our home has to be a place when your kids walk in, their friends walk in, you are praying over your home. You are praying over every single person who walks in there that they would encounter the love of Christ, because they will not find that besides church. They will not find that kind of love any other place in this world.
I don't want to go now. Lisa's talking about Jesus. I'm over here thinking about something radically different.
We need that too.
Okay, apart from Jesus, I like the idea of creating a private communication channel with your spouse. Jennie and I literally can look at each other right now and communicate.
That's called the Wi-Fi.
Ah, that's good.
Look at that. That is good right there. Have an ongoing text conversation with your spouse. I can't believe what these little demons in our house did today. But you think about, everybody probably has a friend that they grew up with, a friend that was in first grade. And the way you made that friend was literally in school. Why? You suffered together, but you found the humor in the midst of the suffering. That's what parenting is. We're gonna suffer together, but hey, you have to suffer with me. And so let's find the joy and literally text back and forth. It should never be revealed, never be found out publicly by any means. So be very careful. Don't make the mistake I made, that when you pass your phone down to your son, that you haven't deleted the conversations. Because
and
then
the photos, right?
Then you're gonna have to have a talk with him that you probably should have had a year ago, is all I'm saying. But a private communication about Jesus and the joy that's in your house will add joy to your relationship.
What would you say?
I would say maybe two things. I think for me personally, I've been learning a lot this year being a woman at rest and knowing that the whole thing, if mom ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And also the fact that the Bible talks about a woman being the heart of the home. And so really taking that responsibility seriously and really wanting to grow and being a woman at rest in my home, and just that whole idea of letting our home be a place of rest for our family. And that's a fight, honestly, because it's so easy to let the little things be a big deal in my heart, and that bleeds into every relationship that I have within my home. And one of those things is for me to put myself to bed at a certain time. Obviously, we're at a stage where I'm still needing to put my son to bed, but there are honestly times where I put him to bed at 8:30, and I don't know what everyone else is doing. I say goodnight, but I have to put myself to bed, because after like 9:30, Witchy Jennie, and you could put a different letter in front of Witchy, comes out, and it's not pretty, and I don't want my kids to remember just mean mom every night. And so I know that I have to have a bedtime. The second thing would be not taking myself so seriously, taking my role seriously, but not myself seriously, and laughing. And luckily, God gave me a humorous husband, as you can tell, where if I can just laugh at him and with him, laugh at our kids, like there's a fun element to that also.
So good. I would add to that, and that's really great advice, that realizing the spin on if mom ain't happy, no one happy, but you have a role to play in that. I don't think you should write a message on that. That's really good. Like for Mother's Day at Fresh Life, we're committing to it right now. Keep mom
Done.
happy. Your own personal job.
Start studying now.
Awesome. And I'll take the weekend off and be on the beach. That's not a good Mother's Day. Okay. But it's so funny, every pastor does that. They make their wife preach on Mother's Day, which is so screwed up. Okay, so, right? I would say tradition. Fight for traditions. Like, we do waffles on Saturday. My kids know. They even, like my daughter, like 15-year-old, pretends to hate that I always put jazz music on and we make waffles. But like those kind of traditions and customs and little ridiculous camping trips and funny stories, like I make up these stories. I'll tell one other thing too. I make up these ridiculous stories about Danger Pilot and Squirrel, and my son loves them, but the kids remember them all. And like, I remember the stories my dad used to tell me as a little boy, camping in Colorado and in the tent, and he made up these stories about Hector the horse and Golden Pony, but those are the things you remember. It's funny what you carry into life, and hopefully your kids will be telling the stories one day to your grandkids. But the second thing I would say is, this is a fun little tip. I have the Kindle app on my phone, and I buy books like the Narnia books or Lord of the Rings. Right now we're doing Treasure Island, and I airplay them to the TV, and then we go around and one person reads a page, and then we switch, and then the next person reads the page, and our whole family will read this book together off the TV. And it's just been the funnest little tradition. We'll make up silly voices for the pirates or Mr. Tumnus, and it's just a fun way to make reading where everybody can read together. So that's one little tip.
That's good. Come on, give it up for our whole panel. The Thompsons, not married. Kevin and Lisa. Give it up for the Luskos. Thank them for everything they've done. You guys, amazing, amazing, amazing.